Rebecca Wilson is the Policy and Research Coordinator for the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives. And she's moving communities and policies beyond waste incineration and developing zero waste leadership and initiatives throughout the world. She's currently serving on the board of the Zero Waste USA and is proud to have been a NCRA board member from 2004 to 2008. See, all the cool kids eventually do their time. Recycling is not enough. Findings from our Global Plastics Recycling Research Project.
Great. Thank you. So a little note, which is plastic China, one of the first places it was seen was here. About 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago when Wang Julian was here. And I don't know if you remember that 5-minute clip he produced for us that could not be broadcast. It was really, before it got on the film circuit, but we thought it was so important that those who were on the cutting edge of zero waste and of recycling policy in California would know what was coming. We started working on a research project last year, about this time, with members and partners in these countries that are highlighted in red, as well as the United States and Europe. So a number of countries in Asia-Pacific region, China, India, Hong Kong, Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And we wanted to understand plastic recycling more and sort of try to see what was going to be coming at us in the future years as we work more and more on the issue of plastic. And what is the role of plastic recycling? And we didn't know what was going to be coming at us 3 months later, which was obviously what we just heard about and what you all have been living through for the past 9 months or so. We also didn't know that we'd have so much more understanding about how much plastic production is expected to ramp up in the United States alone due to cheap shale gas. And if you haven't seen these reports, please go check them out. CL is the Center for International Environmental Law, cl.org on their website, and look at the projections for growth of plastics in the US from cheap shale gas. That was a real eye-opener to us, and it really led us to think about how do we address plastic and plastic recycling in that context, and what is the role for cities on the cutting edge of zero waste in that context. So first I want to talk about our findings with our international research partners. We asked people to go out, to look at plastic recycling conditions, to see what was happening on the ground with both domestic conditions and imported recycling. We already had seen, images of a wide range of images from China about recycling operations. We wanted to know what was happening in other places. And we really found there's a tension between imported plastics and domestic plastics for recycling. And that tension, it was quite explicit with China, and it's going to be more and more explicit in other countries like Indonesia, like Malaysia, like India, where there's big pressure to recycle more plastic. So there's some tension there that are butting up against each other. In fact, India said we're going to prioritize domestic recycling. That is why we're banning post-consumer plastic imports. That happened a few years ago. Now, apparently, according to our on-the-ground research, imports are still happening, coming in through secret markets, with imported plastics still ending up in informal recycling systems that might look a lot like we saw on the dirtier and more health risky edge of what was happening in China, right? So in India, there's still concern about the informal sector and the recycling of plastic imports, which are our exports. In Malaysia, as we just saw, there's been a lot of increase of plastic coming in as waste or for recycling. And the increasing news about abandoned containers of plastic waste has been causing some alarm from the Malaysian government, calling for more regulation of plastic waste imports. We're also concerned about the recycling conditions and the human impacts. Because the informal sector are the people who are managing so many of the mixed plastics. And when we look at what the US has been used to exporting, this blue line is mixed plastics, right? We're quite used to exporting mixed plastics and letting other countries sort it. And that might be happening in the informal sector. It's really hard to tell. And so my final point is back to what Kate was alluding to. The transparency of plastic waste trade is, how do I put it? Not transparent. It's really hard to track. It's hard to know what's going on, where things are ending up, what the final fate is of the materials that we've worked so hard to collect and sort, right? And And then what we're seeing also around the world and in the US, and nobody's surprised I'm bringing this up, I'm sure, is that this has become that China's restrictions on plastic waste imports and our export has become an excuse for more plastic to fuel or waste to energy type proposals, not just in the US, but also all around the world. So I'm going to give you one quick US example. This is from Dow, the world's largest plastic producer. They have this cute little pilot project, and they made a video about it. And so we took their video, and we fixed it for them. So I hope you come to our website and check out the way that we, a little spoofed of their video, but we really wanted to show this was Dow's own picture. We didn't add any plastic plates or cutlery to this. This is their picture. You keep using these single-use plastics. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about China's restrictions. We got it covered. Put it in our orange bag, and we'll go burn it in a cement kiln, which is happening in Nebraska, or maybe we'll try to turn it into fuel in Salt Lake City, but we don't quite know yet, and it's all a little bit shady. Fortunately, these projects are small, okay? So what I want to emphasize here, these projects are small, and there's things you can do about it. So please come to our website and take action there. And all of this led us, with our global partners, like back to our global partners that we were working on this plastic recycling project with, it just added up to us saying, it's time to question what future we want with plastic. We know that plastic recycling has a role, and we know that there are limitations. And a lot of that has to do with the design of the plastic in the first place. It's not because people and cities aren't trying really hard. It's because the things are designed to not be recyclable, right? I mean, we all know this. So this is the time to make it really clear. And that's what we wanted to do with this report we put out. It's also on our website, no-burn.org. And we looked at two different futures. One is the business as usual. This is, okay, the plastic companies are saying we're going to ramp up because we got all this extra oil and gas. People don't want it as fuel. Let's make it into plastic. That gives us higher profits. That's what the plastic industry is saying right now. And we said, well, we're not going to take that, right? So let's set out a different vision that includes a best case scenario of reducing virgin plastic production, period. Right? We have an overproduction of virgin plastic. It's time to end that. We need corporate liability. I want to go beyond EPR. We need to make the corporations liable for the production of plastic that is not recyclable, that is polluting our air and our water and all these different systems. And we need any continued plastic recycling that happens to meet a high standard for environment and a high standard for social impact. Right? That's just what we need. So that was the vision that we came to together with our international partners, and we feel like that's the direction we need to move in. And the question for us all now, as I know you're grappling with every day, is how do we get there? And what role does zero waste cities, what role does local government have to play in getting to that place, in changing those practices, in questioning this overproduction of new virgin plastic, right? What role do we have to play? And that's where we all have to sit right now. I'm talking to the choir, obviously. You all have led bans on plastic. You've led bans on straws. You are doing, phasing out single-use food containers, right? In the city of Alameda, these are so important. And what's the next step? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to hear from you. What is the next step that cities can be taking, that local governments can be taking, so that we change the story about plastic? Because the plastic industry is really happy to say, oh, those cities, they're not trying hard enough if they just do this other thing. Or, oh, those countries in Southeast Asia, they're not trying hard enough with their trash if they just collect a little better. But the problem is them. So let's change the story. We have a really important role there. I want to show one example of that. We're working with a lot of cities across Asia-Pacific region and the Philippines, Indonesia, India, and Malaysia to implement zero waste at a city scale. Decentralized programs, really amazing work is happening right now on zero waste across Asia-Pacific region. And one of the most important aspects of this is to go one step further. So because as you know, when you sort all the compost out and all the recyclables out, you can look at what's left. And so it's really great to hear about the brand audit that the Clean Water Action has done in Alameda. And this is a brand audit from the residual waste at a zero waste city in the Philippines. And guess who? I mean, you can see these are the multinational companies I highlighted in yellow because they're doing a great job putting out a lot of trash that has no market. and has nothing that can be done with it. And we even question, does it need to be there in the first place, a lot of this stuff. So that's my challenge to you and my invitation. I want to talk to you. I want to hear your ideas. What is the next step so that we change the story about plastic, so that we stop plastic pollution by stopping the production of plastic itself? Thank you.
So now I think we've told all the story that we plan to tell today through our speakers around China and its role in our collective future. Do we have questions now that we're kind of stunned? No questions. Oh, wait. Gary has a question.
Would a state, given everyone in the state is working on local campaigns to tell people to recycle right, quality matters, do the right thing, wouldn't a statewide campaign on that message be helpful? Could you speak to whether you're pursuing that or anyone you know is pursuing that idea?
A statewide campaign to recycle.
Recycle right, yeah.
There.
I am curious if others have an answer to that. Because we are not working on a statewide campaign in California right now.
Okay, CAW maybe needs to talk to this.
Kelly, are you still here?
Is Kelly still here?
Okay.
You've raised an interesting point, and this is certainly a role that NCRA needs to play as well, and that ZIWA and CRA, and I think we've got all the right people in the room. So,
Hello?
you're really good at these whole email chains. Okay,
have a thought
I just
over
want
here.
to say, CAW has introduced legislation, or has talked about introducing legislation that only things that are recyclable or compostable should be purchased, right? And so the current bill that Kelly put up there is for state agencies and state parks, that they can only purchase things that can be recycled or composted locally. So they want to test that out at for state facilities, but of course the ideal would be that would be statewide, right? You can't have anything that's not recyclable or compostable. That would be a goal, and that I do know CAW is working on.
there was
Can
a
I-
question back here that we need
I have
to.
a,
Yeah, we moved over here.
Oh, you moved over
thank-
here.
so when you asked, what can we do, and I really appreciate just flipping that narrative, that, calling out those corporations that are producing a lot of this waste, really, and having them be liable. But one thing that we're working with Plastic Pollution Coalition is also flipping the narrative with speaking truth to plastic. So not using industry terms when we speak about plastic. So we don't say disposable plastic anymore, it's single use. Plastic never was and never will be disposable. It's not recyclable at 9% recycle rate. It doesn't fit the definition of recycle, and as we see what the system is, it's not recycling. So we don't say recyclable plastic. We don't say compostable. We don't say biodegradable plastic because it's not fitting the definition of any of those things. So it's been shown that people will pay more money for a product if they know it does less harm to the environment. And so we need to be really strong and flip that narrative when we communicate about the reality of using this stuff for single use. And that's how we get to the gist of it. We have all these bans and these things that we're doing, and it's all about the items. Let's get right to the plastic, which is the problem for
Well,
single use.
we had a great time to visit with her at drinks last time, so I think we need to continue having a great time at drinks afterwards.